Hello everyone, I am Deep Patel from the Department of Mechanical Engineering. As you all know, we were discussing about the chapter number 7, that is the IC engine. And in the last lecture, we have discussed about the classification of IC engine and basic parts or components of the IC engine, in which we have discussed all these components. Like blue color is the piston, next connecting rod, crank, crankshaft. We have discussed about inlet valve and the exhaust valve, how that valve is operated and what is the function of the inlet valve and exhaust valve. Okay, we have discussed about the cylinder, spark plug and fuel injector. Today in this lecture I am going to discuss about two important topics. First I will discuss about the terminologies and second I will discuss about the 4-stroke petrol engine. Okay, so let us start our discussion with the terminologies. So first of all you have to understand this figure. Okay, so from this figure you can understand that there is one term which is known as TDC. TDC is the top dead center, and in the bottom of the cylinder you can see that is BDC. BDC means bottom dead center. Okay, also you can see here some degrees 0, 90, 180 and 270, that is the rotation of crank. Okay, so all this we have to understand, but for understanding the terminology you have to keep in mind this figure. Okay, how piston is reciprocate, how crank is rotated, what are the parts of the IC engine. Okay, so let us start with the terminologies of the IC engine. So the first term is TDC. TDC is the top dead center. It is the uppermost position in the cylinder. Okay. Next is the BDC. BDC means bottom dead center. It is the bottommost position at which piston can travel. Okay. So this is known as BDC. Okay. Third is the clearance volume. Now what is the meaning of clearance volume? Clearance volume is the volume between the top dead center and the cylinder head. Okay, so the space which is remains between the piston head at the top dead center and the cylinder head is known as the clearance volume. Why we provide clearance volume? To operate the inlet and exhaust valve. Okay, and also the combustion can easily takes place with the help of spark plug. So we have to provide the clearance volume. Okay. Next is the stroke volume. Now what is the meaning of stroke volume? We know the piston will travel from the top dead center to the bottom dead center of the cylinder. Okay, so the volume between the top dead center and the bottom dead center is known as the stroke volume. So if someone call what is the meaning of total volume? So the total volume is the clearance volume plus swept volume or stroke volume. Okay, so the clearance volume means the gap or the volume between the top dead center and the cylinder head, and the stroke volume means the volume which occupied by the piston from the traveling from the top dead center to the bottom dead center. Okay, so this is the meaning of stroke volume. Okay. Next is the what is the meaning of stroke? Stroke means the distance between top dead center to the bottom dead center. Generally this stroke is indicated by the L. Okay, so the distance between top dead center and the bottom dead center is known as the stroke. Okay. Next is the compression ratio. So the term compression ratio we have already learned in the chapter number 5 heat engine, when we were discussing about the Otto cycle and the diesel cycle. Okay, so we can say that what is the compression ratio? Compression ratio is the ratio of total volume to the clearance volume. Okay, and we know that what is the total volume? That is Vc plus Vs, clearance volume plus swept volume upon clearance volume. Okay, that is the known as compression ratio R. Okay. Next is the piston speed. Okay, so we can say that the average speed of the piston is known as the piston speed. Okay, and the formula to find the piston speed is 2ln divided by 60. So here L is the stroke length and N, that is the number of RPM of crank, okay, and divided by 60, that is for converting into the second, because RPM will be in the revolution per minute. So we can get piston speed in the meter per second. The formula of this is 2ln divided by 60. Okay, so these are some terminologies related to the IC engine. Okay. Now the second topic of today's lecture is 4-stroke petrol engine. Okay. So first of all, why it is called 4-stroke petrol engine? Okay. So first of all, from the petrol you can easily understand that here the fuel which will be come inside the cylinder is petrol. Okay. And if it is the petrol engine, then we require one spark plug. Okay. So sometimes it is also known as the spark ignition engine. Okay. Second, here there is a petrol engine, that means here the cycle which will be used to understand this engine, that is the Otto cycle, and we have already discussed in our chapter number 5 what is the meaning of Otto cycle. Okay, so the 4-stroke petrol engine is depends on the Otto cycle. Okay, so first of all we have to understand 4 strokes. Okay, so stroke means when the piston is travels from top dead center to bottom dead center, or from bottom dead center to top dead center. Okay, so that is known as stroke. Here they mention 4 stroke. Okay, 4 stroke means 4 times piston will travel from TDC to BDC or BDC to TDC. Okay, so when first piston will travel from TDC to BDC, that is known as suction stroke. Then piston will move from bottom dead center to top dead center, that is known as second stroke, that is the compression stroke. Again piston will move from TDC to BDC, that is our third stroke, that is known as power stroke. And in the fourth, when piston will move from bottom dead center to top dead center, that is known as the exhaust stroke. Okay, so these are the 4 strokes we have to understand, and due to this 4 stroke, the name of the engine is 4-stroke petrol engine. Okay, so let us understand all the strokes one by one. Okay, so first of all, our first stroke is the suction stroke. So in the suction stroke, what happens? Piston wheel at the top dead center. Initially piston wheel at the top dead center. Now what happens? When piston will move from top dead center to the bottom dead center, the mixture of petrol and air which was generated in the carburetor will enters into the cylinder. Okay, so piston will move from top dead center to the bottom dead center, and the mixture of petrol and air will comes from the inlet valve to the cylinder. During this what happens? The crank will rotate. So initially the crank will be at 0 degree. After the end of suction stroke, crank will rotate and it will reach at the 180 degree. Okay, so this is how the rotation of crank and traveling of the piston is happens. Piston will move from top dead center to the bottom dead center, crank will move from 0 to 180, and the mixture of petrol and air will comes into the cylinder. Okay, so this is the end of our suction stroke. Okay, next is the compression stroke. Now what happens during the compression stroke? Now initially the piston will at the BDC at the end of suction stroke, so piston will travel from bottom dead center to the top dead center. Okay, during the compression stroke. Now the petrol and the air mixture which is already present inside the cylinder will be compressed, and due to this compression the pressure and temperature of the mixture will be rise, during which what happens? The crank will travel from 180 to 360. Okay, so we can say that in the compression stroke what happens? Piston will travel from bottom dead center to the top dead center. Simultaneously the mixture which was already present inside the cylinder will gain some temperature and pressure, and simultaneously the crank will rotate from 180 to 360 degree. Okay, so this all the things is happen in the compression stroke. Now our third stroke is the expansion stroke or the power stroke. Now during this expansion stroke what happens? When the piston is reached at the TDC after the compression stroke, the spark is produced. from the spark plug. Now due to this spark, what happens, the mixture is already having higher temperature and pressure, and when the spark is created, the mixer will be blast. So we can say that the combustion process is start. So after the combustion, the higher amount of the energy is generated, and so that the piston will be moves from top dead center to the bottom dead center, because of this combustion product, the force will be generated on the piston. So piston is travel from the top dead center to the bottom dead center. Simultaneously, the crank will travel from 0 to 180, and after the combustion, the smoke is generated inside the cylinder. So we can say that in the power stroke, what happens, the spark is generated from the spark plug. Due to the spark, there is a combustion process start. After combustion, the higher amount of energy is generated, and due to that force, the piston is travels from top dead center to the bottom dead center, and crank will rotate from 0 to 180. Okay, and after the combustion, the smoke is generated, which is kept inside the cylinder. Okay. Now our last stroke is the exhaust stroke. So in the exhaust stroke, what happens, the piston is travel from the bottom dead center to the top dead center, and crank will travel from 180 to 360. Okay, the smoke which was generated inside the cylinder will be go outside the engine via exhaust valve or the outlet valve. Okay, so we can say that during the exhaust stroke, what happens, the inlet valve will remains closed and the outlet valve will open, and the smoke which was generated after the combustion will go to the atmosphere from the exhaust valve. Okay, so we can say that in the exhaust stroke, what happens, the piston will travel from bottom dead center to top dead center, the crank will travel from 180 to 360, and the smoke which was present inside the cylinder will going to the atmosphere from the outlet valve. Okay, so these are the total 4 strokes. Okay, so first stroke is the suction stroke. In the suction stroke, inlet valve is open and exhaust valve will remain closed. Okay, and the petrol and air mixer will be come. Piston will move from top dead center to the bottom dead center. In the compression stroke, the mixer will gain some pressure and temperature, during which both the valves, inlet valve and exhaust valve, will remain closed. In the third stroke, the spark is generated and the combustion is start. Due to the combustion of petrol, the higher amount of energy is generated, and the piston will travel from TDC to BDC. During the expansion or the power stroke, both the valve will remains close. Okay, now our fourth stroke is the exhaust stroke. After the combustion, the smoke will be generated, and this smoke will be goes to the atmosphere from the cylinder via outlet valve. So this all is happens in the exhaust stroke. Okay, so these are the 4 stroke, and these are happen in the petrol engine, so we called it as a 4-stroke petrol engine. Okay, so this is what all about the 4-stroke petrol engine. Okay, so thank you for today.